All right, I am going to introduce Ephraim Getahun, who will be facilitating our caregiver panel. And Ephraim, as you see in your program, is, and I'll get your right title, Ephraim, Director of Strategic Partnerships and Training for Open House. So welcome.
Hello, hello. Give me one moment here. Yes, I can. Can everyone hear me okay? I can project. My voice works really well. Is that better? Fantastic. We're here for it. So as I was so graciously introduced, my name is Ephraim Getahun. My pronouns are he, him. I am the Director of Strategic Partnerships and Training at Open House, which is the LGBT Senior Center here in the heart of San Francisco. And I have the greatest privilege of what is, for me, the highlight of today's event, which is the Caregivers Panel. And we have three incredible, beautiful souls that are going to really share their stories from unique perspectives, unique experiences, but that is still a single thread that will create a tapestry that really illustrates the spirit of caregiving. And so I'm going to turn it over. We have three individuals, Joyce Calvert, Linda Hills, and Richard Mendelson. And I really encourage, their bios are right in front of you. I don't want to take much more time, so I'm actually going to let you read that over as these individuals share their stories. So we're going to start with Linda. Joyce. Joyce, we're going to start with you if that's okay. Yes, fantastic. So thank you so much, Joyce. Is this microphone on?
Yeah, turn it off and hit it. It goes right up to your mouth. I'm sorry. You can clean it if you like. They can't hear you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Joyce. Is this on?
No, you have to put it.
It'll be like all the way to the left.
Hello? Hello? Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Joyce. Huh? Testing. Okay. All right, you guys. All right, you guys. I'm going to give you a disclaimer, first of all. I'm kind of a rule and structure-oriented person, so I went exactly with the questions that they gave us. And they gave us 3 questions. But I'm going to start off with this thing right now, okay? I'm not a professional. I'm a family caregiver. And my only way to show you what I do and how I do it is to kind of talk, self-talk. I'm going to talk to myself right now, okay? Besides, I'm nervous. So if you came to me and you said, what do I do now that my loved one's been diagnosed with dementia? I'd ask you a million questions. I'd ask you, who are your family? Who are your friends? What's your financial situation? Do you have long-term care insurance? What's your housing security? But the most important question I would ask you is, are you teachable? Because in my experience, I was either going to learn a lot with this experience with my wife and taking care of her with her dementia, or I was going to be miserable. So I'm still miserable a lot of the time, but I don't fight it anymore. I let myself be it and move along. So there's also another question, another option for you, and that is the option is to bail. All right? You can bail, you can take off, you don't have to do this. Not everybody does this, right? But if I was going to stay, I had to be teachable. So I've been caring for my wife, Jane, for 7 years. Oh, that's what it is. It's the angle. It's the angle.
Yes, yes.
And it's in so many things in our lives, it's the angle. Okay. The first question was, when did I first consider myself a caregiver? And that was first, I was a working, full-time, long-distance caregiver for my mom and dad living in South Texas. Long-distance caregiving is real. and it's valid, and you need support. It deserves support, and you deserve it. It's very stressful. Worrying about your loved one's care miles and miles away. I brought my mom up to San Francisco after my dad died and discovered she had vascular dementia. That's the time I consider the beginning of my caregiving journey. At that time, Jane's dementia was still in early stages, so I was attempting to work full-time at a job that I absolutely loved. I had very little awareness of what caregiving was then. So what I've learned. Since then, I've learned about caregiving agencies, how they work, the good and the bad. I learned about ER visits, behavioral problems, memory care, board care, falls, hospice. I found free medical equipment, paratransit, 30th Street Senior Center, On Lock. I discovered all the people at Open House, Ray Dolby Brain Health Center, the Family Caregiver Alliance, of course, the Global Brain Health Institute at UCSF, and the Iowa Enrichment Center. So we participated in memory care cafe lunches. We socialized with other couples when we could, and we had independent caregivers, family friends, friendly visitors, and coffee club friends. They all took turns taking care of Jane so I could have respite. So through these experiences, I kind of knew what to do and where to go for the first few years of Jane's decline. But today, her decline is in unknown territory. It's been 7 years. A side note, if you can go to Sacramento with the Alzheimer's Association advocacy, you should go. It's a lot of fun, and you'll really see how things happen at the legislative level. So Jane's decline felt exponential during the pandemic. When we were able to participate in the day program again, her cognition improved. But what has impacted our experience the most is being a co-op caregiver at the Iowa Enrichment Center, where Jane goes 5 days a week. The co-op is part of a private pilot program funded by private grants. So the social interaction is so vital. I'm going to spend some time on that. So as part of my self-care, I also take classes at City College. Last spring, I took a public policy class that has launched me into gathering public and private interest in worker-owned dementia day programs. I'm going to let that sit. It's one of the reasons why I agreed to speak here at all, because I want to talk to all the people that are here that can help me do that, because I can't do it alone. And I know it's a good solution to some of the problems we've talked about today up here at the table in the medical field and the day center field and the in-home service support services, which it doesn't help to have an in-home support service if you need to go to a day program. And the middle class is kind of stuck in the middle of that, trying to afford it, trying to find ways to get it. The co-op has been a lifesaver for us. So let's see, self-care. The way I think I got involved, or the way I take care of my self-care, I think, is getting involved in the dementia community. I've kind of dove in. I know I have to take care of me, and it's not that easy. It seems I take care of myself in starts and stops. Like I grab onto something like art or meditation or writing or exercise, and then I slip back into myself. Like somehow it's important to do the grieving instead of anything else. But I learned to let myself do that, and I do it without a whole lot of guilt nowadays. And for me, it's necessary to. So then I'm up again and active and doing my thing. So I want to say that caregiving for dementia is a human-to-human thing. It's a team sport. So it's not care-centered care like skilled nursing. It's learned by doing it, by practicing it, by being resilient about time and space and expectations. So a bunch of people in facilities and programs I'm quoting the Alzheimer's Association right now, have a huge percentage have dementia or dementia-producing diseases, yet no one's really trained. It's in short supply, trained caregivers for dementia. So it's why I feel compelled to do something about the worker-owned idea. Imagine caregivers having a stake in their work environment, good pay, benefits, retirement. They have a stake in their own education and their own caregiving, and their own education about caregiving, and all the participants that show up. Everybody's different. You care for them differently. You can't learn that all at once. So a worker-owned system of caregiving, day dementia caregiving, would help solve a lot of those problems. So in closing, I want to say, first of all, remember to be kind to yourself. Strive for a sense of humor. You can be pretty funny, right? It still holds a social stigma, though. So caregiving is not for everyone. So don't feel bad if you can't do it, or your family members can't do it, or you struggle with it. Find out where you can help, if you can help. But above all, have compassion for yourself. Okay, that's it.
Thank you so much, Joyce. It's really powerful. You know, I have a personal connection to Joyce, and it's just really powerful to hear the ways that these experiences are going to manifest into some real tangible work. And so if you heard the work that Joyce is really committed to and think that you can contribute, please approach her and let her know. And I think it's just really powerful. And that reminder that it's okay to come to terms with some of the misery that comes with caregiving. So please don't forget to write down questions if you have them for our caregivers, because we will be offering answers to some of your questions after the panel is over. So thank you again, Joyce. So next, we are going to move on to Linda Hills. Linda, please take it away. Thank you. And again, the bios are right in front of you, and you can reflect on those as they speak.
Good afternoon. Oh, can you hear me? Yeah? Okay.
Kind of like straight, kind of yeah,
Okay.
perpendicular.
Okay. I've been a caregiver for my husband, who just recently passed March 23rd. But he was diagnosed with Parkinson's and dementia in 2015. But the family, we had already known that there was something, his memory loss. He was a dental technician, inability to do his work. And being a very prideful person, he didn't want me to do a lot for him, but as he progressed, there was more. I'm going to look at you. Thank you. More that I had to learn about a balance, giving him his respect and also helping myself to be a care provider for him. I became a strong advocate for him. We did a lot of things together before the end. I looked at resources in the community. We went to South the Market for art programs. He was involved with the San Francisco Ballet with Cecilia Beam to do exercises in ballet. He also went to rock study. I looked at a lot of resources and things that I thought would be beneficial to him that he would enjoy. Rock study boxing, because he used to box in his younger days. He was 86 when he passed. I got involved in a lot of, I think it's really important for care providers to have a support group. If you can do the support group through your hospital plan or through Family Caregivers Alliance, through their other entities that provide support groups. I was attending the support group in Daly City, it's Stanford support group for Parkinson's. Then I also attended Kaiser support group for dementia. And it really gave me a lot of resources and comfort to hear other people having the same issues on how to take care of someone who's leaving you. I mean, I was grieving him during the time of taking care of him also. I got really involved. We were talking earlier with the panel, and that's something I wanted to bring up, and I didn't put it in my notes. Got really involved with Kaiser. And Kaiser's doctors, some of the doctors in the ER department on how they treated him or wouldn't listen to me. I made such a big stink. Now I'm on Kaiser's geriatric emergency council to make sure that doctors are more sensitive, they have better language, that the people who are coming in with dementia or Parkinson's, that they have a ready-made plan on with their information, so that they don't ask the patient the same questions. They would ask my husband the same questions. I said, that's already in his records. Well, and he couldn't remember. And then I didn't want to be disrespectful and he'd say things that weren't true, and I'd say that's not true. And then he would look at me, and then the doctor, so I had to have a good talk with his doctors and with him about respecting him, but we need to be as diligent as possible. Just navigating the medical services were a big one for me. And you need to know that you are an advocate. You have to be an advocate for someone with dementia and Parkinson's, because that's like a double whammy. He was stiff, he was falling, and dementia, Parkinson's also has a form of mental health also, where you forget things. So all the education, all the children were giving information through all the flyers I got from Family Caregivers Alliance. I made copies for the family so that the kids knew what was going on, because it's not easy to sit down and regurgitate on everything that you have been doing with the person you're taking care of. There was another thing. I'm a native San Franciscan. It does take a village. I think we all who are caregivers have a lot of the same similar issues. Culturally, he was a very pride African-American male who did not want me to do a lot of things for him. And he was trying to hold on to his dignity and respect. So that's a big balance right there, just giving them the respect that they need and making them feel like they are still of value. And also the grieving that you go through. Eventually, last May, I put him in Laguna Honda because he kept falling. He would get up at night sometimes, and when I'm asleep, and he would fall. And I had my grandchildren living with me and my son, and we would still miss him. It just became impossible to keep him at home because of the falling. And neighbors knew, the grocery store owners, my neighbors, they all kind of knew if he would get lost or something, and kind of give him directions back home. So it takes a community, it takes a village. There's no shame, but you be proud that you're able to do this for your significant other. I think that's really the most important thing. It's not doom and gloom, but it is work. It is work, and you have to be a little aggressive and gutsy, and then also step back and be respectful and offer them their dignity. So I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Linda. I think all of our hearts are with you over your loss, and what a beautiful way to commemorate his memory by sharing your story. So thank you so much. Yes. Oh. Okay, maybe we can. Sure. Thank you so much. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I understand. Thank you so much for that. Yeah, I think, sometimes it's our first speaking engagement and people kind of get nervous and forget to keep their mic. Maybe, Richard, for you, when you speak, you might feel comfortable coming up to the podium. Speaking of Richard, we're going to move on to this next speaker. And so again, please don't forget to write down questions if you have them. And we're going to close out this segment with those questions and have our caregivers provide answers to those. So next speaker is Richard Mendelson, who's going to share his experience and his story. And it sounds like he feels good about holding that mic. So we're going to move on.
Good morning. My name is Richard Mendelson, and my wife's name is Barbara. We've been together for 47 years. It's been a best friends, partners, lovers, and it's been a really wonderful relationship for us through these years. Previously, Barbara, who was extremely smart, was a school teacher. She was the vice president of the school board. And our relationship, we divided things up. I was a business person. I was a developer in San Francisco, so I was very busy most of the time doing business. Barbara took on the job of taking care of the children and the schools and being involved in the school. And it was a very supportive team. She did her thing, which in some ways I think was more complicated than mine. And I did my thing. And we came together, after hours and talked about all the things we did. And it was a good way for us to have our relationship. She was diagnosed in 2016 with Alzheimer's. When I called my grown children to tell them that she had had this diagnosis, and I said to them, and I think it might have been at least 2 years before this that she's been forgetting, and my daughter turned around to me and said to me, "Dad, it's been 5 years. It's been way longer than you think." And so for most of us, when we get the diagnosis, that wasn't the beginning of this road. This road started quite a long time before that. Watching the decline has been very difficult for all of us as caregivers, to watch this really smart woman start forgetting, going downhill has been very difficult. She was the favorite mom of all the friends. They all came over. All the girls would come over. She would be the one through the years of drugs, sex, and rock and roll. That was my wife. She took care of everybody. If they OD'd on LSD, they spoke to my wife. That was kind of the way it was, And she was always involved in their schoolwork up and through college. Both my kids went to NYU, and one of my daughters used to send my wife all her college papers to write. She was still doing that. She was super, super smart. When I met her, she was the funniest person at the table. She's pretty convinced that's the reason I married her, because she was really, really funny. And so we decided when this thing came on that we weren't going to drop the humor in our lives. We needed to make sure that fun and funny was still a very important part of our lives. We make a lot of politically incorrect kinds of jokes. I'll turn around to her sometimes and say, "Don't worry, I'll do everything." And we both just crack up. We think that's really, really funny. And for most people that sounds weird, but for us, it keeps the humor going in our lives. The most difficult decision we had is when Barbara had to stop driving. All of us who drive are connected to those wheels. It was the most important time in your life at 16 years old when you got your driver's license. Taking it away and realizing that was very difficult, and I couldn't have that conversation. So I called our personal doctor, and I said, "Would you do this for me?" And he said yes. And I took her over, and he said to her, "I think it's time to stop driving." And that was it. I couldn't have done that. So you should use your doctor in those ways sometimes. She really doesn't like to be treated like a baby. She keeps saying, "I don't need a babysitter, I don't need a babysitter." So when I'm arranging things with friends to see her, what I do is I text with them, we find out the good date for them to see, and then they text her and they say, we'd like to see you at 9:30 on Friday morning, are you available? But I've already done all the homework, it's all done. She does think that she can take care of herself, but we know that's not possible. I mean, sometimes I say, "Go get the plates from the dining room," and she doesn't know where the dining room is. So, I think most of them think they can take care of themselves, but I don't think that really is reality. Less socializing. We were a very social couple in San Francisco, in my business, in her business. We were busy most evenings doing something. And I've noticed that she doesn't like to socialize that much anymore, and I think there's a good reason for that. When she's out with people, even with me, and she starts a conversation, she'll forget halfway through the sentence what the end of the sentence is going to be. And I think that's sort of embarrassing. So the social life has sort of dropped away quite a lot. In fact, when COVID was over, she turned around to me and said to me, "Gee, I really liked COVID," which was kind of a strange comment, you know. But I've noticed the progression has changed. She would forget things, and then she would remember things for 5 minutes, but it's really come down now to about 5 seconds. She doesn't remember very much. She asked me 5 times this morning where I was going. And we have to get used to that as caregivers. We can't say, "I already told you that," because we want to say that 100 times a day. We can't do that anymore. We have to pretend that we hear it for the first time every time. Cooking. Oh boy, that's complicated. Having her in the kitchen just drives me crazy. So I say to her, "Look, why don't you do something else?" Or "Why don't you do the dishes?" Well, she's really good at doing dishes. Takes an hour to dishes. I called my therapist. I said, "What am I going to do? It's taking an hour for her to do these dishes." He said, "Why are you complaining? You have an hour to watch baseball. What are you complaining about?" Plans for the day. We don't plan in advance because she doesn't remember. So when we wake up in the morning, I say, "At 10 o'clock today, you're seeing your friend." And she'll say, "But I didn't know that." I said, "Yes, I did. I told you that a week ago." That helps. I have time where I take off once a week. I get friends to come in and take care of her. I go play golf once a week. I bike ride. I play poker. I do things. But I always need to schedule to have somebody, and that is very complicated. She's happy to sit all day and watch CNN because she can watch the same story over and over and over again, and it's the new story. So I often cheat and I put her in front of CNN for the day. You do have to pick your battles. You can't fight every battle. And so we try to do that. But I had one thing come up that was very complicated recently. She was diagnosed with having cancer on her nose, and she's a melanoma survivor. And I had to make a decision because I knew she was going to have major surgery and cosmetic surgery and the whole thing. I knew she was going to freak out and that she wouldn't understand what was going on. And I was saying to myself, do I want to do this? Do I want to just let the cancer grow? How much longer is she going to live? Is this worth the next few years, months of her being distraught about her face being cut up? We did it anyway, but looking back at it now, not so sure about that. It was a very complicated issue. The toll on us caregivers is huge, and at one point I was really starting to have a little bit of a breakdown. My therapist said to me, "You need to get away, you're burning out." I went away for a week, and it was life-changing for me. I had my kids come, look after my wife, and it was fantastic. The future. You know, I'm 72 years old. I don't know how much longer Barbara's going to last, 2 years, 3 years. I still have a life ahead of me. And it's kind of embarrassing in some ways because I start asking myself the question, where am I going to go? Am I going to have another relationship? How are my kids going to feel about that? It's complicated when you know that something's coming to an end at some point. And are you just going to sit at home for the rest of your life and watch CNN, or are you going to get out there and be a human being that lives a life? And how is your family going to react if you bring somebody else in? Or sort of early questions to ask, but it's been like that for me for a while. So I just want to say, this is the toughest job I ever had, and I'm sure for all of us, there's nothing tougher than being a caregiver. So thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you for these stories, Joyce, centering really reminders of compassion, recognizing when misery arrives, but really transforming those experiences into action. And Linda sharing her stories, especially around cultural competent care, especially around our strong Black men and making sure to ensure that respect is a part of that care, but also meeting them with grace. And Richard making sure to center a lot of humor, which is always, always the best medicine, because if you can't laugh at some of these situations, I'm not really sure where we're gonna end up. So I'm gonna kind of open up into this next section where we're gonna take questions from the audience. I already have a couple. I also have several of my own if the audience doesn't have any more, but I see folks are kind of raising their hands, so please don't hesitate, just put your hand up and someone will come and grab that question, and we're gonna ask our panelists here. And so I have a question here, and this one's for Joyce, so buckle up. And the question,
From Gary?
no name, but maybe you can guess it when you hear the question. How can we find out more about the worker-owned project for caregivers?
Come talk to me. After this. I have a whole proposal. Yeah, this is great. Come talk to me after this. Come talk to me after this, okay, you guys? Anybody who wants to know about that worker-owned idea. I need money. I need people. I need people to give us stuff. I need rich people to give us stuff. All right? So come talk to me afterwards. I mean, these things happen. This is about San Francisco. I'm kind of around. I'm around. Yeah, I'm nervous. So I'm walking around. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. I just lost my train of thought. What was I going to say? Oh, just get a good look. See Linda here, because if you are interested in learning about this kind of new model of memory care centers that could transform the landscape of San Francisco's infrastructure, please come and bother her. She's sitting right over there. To get a good look and memorize that face and find her in the audience, okay? This next question, I'm actually going to center this one for you, Linda. I've heard from dementia caregivers that a lot of your social networks, so think about your friends, your loved ones, and family, drop away because of their discomfort around dementia. What do you want those folks to know, or is there anything you want to say to them?
I think it's important to continue with as much socialization as you can. Explain to people, mainly family, because my husband didn't have a lot of friends, but we were very connected with the family. So that's why I educated the family and the children more so that we could do social things. We did picnics. I would make sure that there was accessibility for handicap there to take his wheelchair. We went to see a couple plays. I made sure that he could have access. Socialization, I think, is very important, but of course it dwindles somewhat. It's not going to be the same anymore. Everyone doesn't understand that. He loved to play dominoes and games. No more game playing. He couldn't follow, so we had to come up with other things. A lot of times I did cooking or had people over for dinner, and light conversations and things like that. So, does that answer? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Linda. This next question I'm going to ask to you, Richard, if that's okay. And the question is there something someone said to you during your time as a caregiver that has stayed with you, good or bad?
God, I've been in a group, MCI, mild cognitive impairment group, now for 6-7 years. There's 3 of them sitting right there. And we meet, it's through the Dolby Memory Center, and we meet every Friday morning. And I've learned so much from these women that I know, and we know a lot of other women. There's probably 10 of us in the group. You just have to listen, because their stories, a lot of their stories are going to be appropriate for you. So I've had so many things, but one of the strange things that has happened to me is when you meet one of your really close friends, you go out for dinner that you've had these friends forever, and then they call you the next day and they say, gee, are you sure Barbara has Alzheimer's? And I just want to kill myself, come on. My whole life has changed. So I think you just need to, you need to listen and hear what everybody has to say.
You want to answer that one?
have to
Yes,
have-
please,
You
go
have
ahead.
to let some of it roll sometimes. You can't take everything personal because a lot of people are not aware of how to deal with someone with dementia or a person changing. So a lot of times you need to let it roll. I know I was personally offended by my children when I first mentioned going into a care facility. Going into a care facility. I had to put my dad in one. I took care of my mom. She was in hospice. So when I decided to put Ernest in because of falling, I said, oh, and then my husband, oh, black people don't put their families in boarding cares or things like that. And I'm saying, listen, Ernest, and he's from the South, he's from Louisiana, and how come I can't be at home? You keep falling. I don't, we did everything, bars, carpet up, just to make sure that he was comfortable and safe. And I said, we're not in a generational home where 5 or 6 people are living with. It was just him and myself. I moved in a grandchild and I moved in a son so that they could help me out a little bit. But there were comments made that maybe we could have did something different, but I was the primary provider. I was there every day visiting him, and we did adult day centers. We went through the whole thing. So you can't take everything personal, and they will say things because they're not intuitive or sensitized to what you're going through, and you may have to let it roll, and that they don't understand.
I have something to say about that. Everybody does caregiving different. Every caregiver is different. Every person who needs caregiving is different. And it took me a while to learn that because I thought, oh, I know everything now. I've been to this workshop, so I can tell everybody else what to do and how to do it. And I learned really early on that it's helpful to no one, especially me and you. So everybody does it different. I've let go of all my judgment around anybody's caregiving. Even if they think they're a caregiver and I go, oh man, you don't do what I do. You can't be a that kind of crap. So I really kind of pull myself back from that. The worst thing that anybody has ever said to me would be the same thing. Well, Jane seems fine to me. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, absolutely. I think that is probably the most difficult part of a dementia diagnosis is that interstitial space from the diagnosis to when it's apparent to friends and loved ones. And that's very difficult because you're there witnessing every molecular exchange that leads to you understanding that someone is experiencing dementia. So I have something that's actually a comment from an audience member that I think is really valuable, and I'm going to read this out because I know from a caregiving perspective, myself and other caregivers have a very difficult time asking for help. And this tip is actually really incredible. I'm going to share this with lots of people that I know that are caregivers. But essentially, the comment is that when someone asks you how they can help, rather than having to face this burden complex and navigating the difficulty of actually saying, yes, I do need help, in your private time, build a list of things that you actually need, without anyone observing what the real authentic things that you need in your life, and then produce that list anytime someone asks how they can help you, and they can assign themselves one of those tasks to do for you, so that exchange of having to humble yourself and ask for help is alleviated a little bit. So I really appreciate someone who just walked up. Yes?
25 years as support provider.
Yes, thank you so much. What's your name? Ethel Wallace. 90 years old. Yes, thank you, Ethel. Thank you so much for that. Thank you. That's a really, really smart tip, and I'm definitely going to employ that. I really, really love that idea. I have another question here, but before I ask this one, I actually want to touch on something that all three of you had a theme on in your stories, and it really, I guess the term we use is anticipatory grief, which is the understanding that the inevitable is going to arrive, and grieving traditionally happens after we've lost someone, but oftentimes, especially with a dementia diagnosis, that grieving process begins immediately. So I don't really have a question, but I'm wondering if there's a comment or anything that you want to speak to about anticipatory grief and how people can kind of navigate that. Yeah, it's a big one.
You know, when they're changing, it's not easy to see the change. And I started telling my children, we had 6 children. We were like the Brady Bunch. He had 3 and I had 3 when we got together. 44 years together. But when you see the change, all I could do was pray, ask for guidance to help him to be the best, because I think sometimes they know also, sometimes they know that there's something going on, but they're holding on to their dignity. So it's not easy, but you do start the grieving process before they're gone. And then even after they're gone, there's another grieving process. It's a little bit different because their energy is no longer there, they're physically no longer there, but when they're going through this process, oh, I'm sorry, thank you, help me. It's not easy, but you can get through it, you know, because if you really care and love that person, you're gonna do what you can to help them to get through it too. And I thank God that I was able to be there for him, and I do wonder, yeah.
Yeah, I'll say about, I talked about that grief and that I actually have to go there and feel that grief. Otherwise, it comes out in all these crazy ways in my life. And so that's how I deal with that anticipatory grief. I do a lot of writing, too. I've done a lot of writing about grief and what I'm feeling as I'm going through this. And that's been cathartic also. So, yeah, and I'll give that.
For me, the grief is not a constant thing. It comes and goes, and in some ways it might depend a little bit about the kind of day she's having, or even the kind of day I'm having. And when it happens, boy, it's rough. It's rough because we really do know what's coming, and if it's bad that day, you know it's going to get worse. But you just can't dwell on that. It's impossible to be a caregiver 24/7 and live in a state of grief and give the love that you want to give to that person. I think you have to put your grief aside as much as you can, and when you have it, just do it quietly and experience it. But I don't think you can do it all the time.
Thank you so much for those comments. I have another question, and I'm just curious where we're at with time before I continue.
I think about 5 minutes and then maybe a break.
Okay, great. So we'll go for about 5 more minutes and then a break. Great, and then lunch is coming, so sure, no problem. Thank you so much. And so this is just a comment specifically for you, Joyce. They're just thanking you and that you've inspired them. I've been trying to do solo traveling, and I will be doing a driving trip pretty soon to the Pacific Coast, to Big Sur. That's fantastic. So I'm glad that someone feels motivated, so that's fantastic. More about that workers co-op. So find Joyce if you have questions about that co-op. Find her after this. Ooh, this is a good one. What if anything, do you wish that providers, both medical and mental health professionals, or you and your loved ones that you've interacted with, would have done differently to better serve you and your loved one with dementia or a chronic condition? And anyone can answer.
I'll take that first. Getting back to the story I told you about my wife having the cancer removed from her nose, I called the office in advance to say to them, look, I need you to know I need to be in the room, and my wife has dementia. Well, when we got there, the doctor kept talking to her, and she didn't understand what he was talking about. So I pulled him aside, I took him outside, I said, I need to talk to you for a minute. You need to talk to me. You need to understand I'm a caregiver. Barbara does not understand what you're saying. And I think that's the most important thing that we need to remember, that the people that take care of our loved ones really understand that you are the point person on this.
I'd like to ditto on that too. It's very, very important to let them know that you need to be a part of all the planning, and they can talk to him or to your partner, your significant person that you're taking care of, but they also need to include you and respect you. And you have to almost demand it in a certain sense. Once they know that you want this, they will work with you. It's no different when my husband was in the ER and they had him there for 6 hours. They said, well, you can't come. This is at UC. And I said, well, we can't let anyone in. I said, you've had him in there for 6 hours. He's in the hallway on a gurney. He may wake up not knowing where he's at, confused. And I said, I need to be there. So find me a chair, and I'm going to come in there. Security's tried to stop me, and I said, then we need to not have this. And I didn't act ugly, but, you need to be firm about taking care of that person, because it's just not fair. So, yeah.
That's nice. I have been ugly. Many times in many ways. I feel like I can handle people with cognitive decline these days, but I can't handle people that don't have it. I don't want to repeat things 10 times, and I don't want to do that, and not listening. So, we deal with that all day long with someone not able to listen. But I don't know if there's anything I would have done different or anything I will do different. I think this is a journey for me. It's not the end. I don't have a goal. The end result is that we're all going to die. But this one we see happening. And so it's my journey, and all the negative and crazy things that have happened to me in the last 7 years and how I've dealt with it, wrong and right. It just is. I don't think I would do anything different. So, welcome to the journey.
And on that note, I think we are going to go ahead and close the panel. I just want to, honestly, Joyce, Linda, Richard, thank you so much for sharing your stories. And as you applaud them, I hope you see yourself reflected. You see yourself reflected in these individuals, and you're applauding yourselves as well as caregivers. And so, just to take that moment, and Leah's going to come up and say some words before we break.
Great. So before you go, I want to give you a little thank you. A little thank you and a gift card there. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. Wasn't that fabulous? There's nothing like hearing it. And my guess is for everything that they said, there are many of you in the audience who have felt very similar things or experienced similar things. So thank you for them for helping us put that out there in the open. Couple things, we're getting ready for lunch. You may have noticed that we've got some boxes over there. We're going to call, you have a number in the middle of your table. Just to make things sort of sane, we're going to call numbers and have those tables go up. We have a good selection of staff that will be over there to help give out lunches. We also have staff who speak Cantonese and Spanish if you have any questions for your lunch. In the back of your name tag, you'll see a little yellow slip. That's your lunch ticket. And some of you who requested, you had an option at registration to select vegetarian. For those of you that did, there's a small group of you, everyone will be asked for their ticket, so plan to take that ticket and give it to somebody at the table there. But if you have a vegetarian one, they will make sure that you get a vegetarian lunch. All of the lunches are fabulous. There's just two kinds, vegetarian and non-vegetarian. So, and the non-vegetarian, I think, are chicken. So, the other thing I would like to mention before we break for lunch is on your table, in addition to those bowls of candy, right, that had been getting us through the morning, there's some pens and there's some fun little napkins that say, "Let's celebrate caregiving," and you're welcome to take both home. So there's some more or less celebrate caregiving napkins on the table over for the lunches, and you're welcome to take them. And again, if you need a pen, don't hesitate to take a pen. Okay, with that, are there any questions before we break? Oh, yes, we start back at 1 o'clock, so that means come back to your place by 12:55. And if you, let's see, what else? Oh, and after lunch, we have a really important thing planned. You see these white pages on the wall here? That's when you registered, you had an option to choose a subject area that you would want to talk about a little bit more. And there we'll be putting signs up on various tables where those groups will be gathering. So when you come back, you can eat where you are now, but we will be asking you to shift after that point. So you'll get a chance to talk in a smaller group with people who will also identify that same topic area that was of interest. And from that, we're going to pull out some key ideas and suggestions, document that on the wall. And then after all of that, we're going to take all that information, put them into some event highlights. We're going to send them out to you. So you have it all at the end. So, but just to let you know, that's kind of how how the afternoon will roll. And then we have two more relaxation kind of wellness events at the very end, towards the very end. I take that back. One is right after lunch, and one is at the very end, just to help you center and take in this wonderful energy that we have here today. So with that, everyone's saying, let's get to lunch. So let me, what I would like to do is go ahead and release, I'll be traditional. Let's go with tables 1, 2, 3, and 4. Why don't you go ahead and go up